So today on True-Moto-Resto, it's fixing the seat on what is otherwise a almost flawless Aprilia RSV Factory. So after having had this bike for a few years, this seat bolt was actually basically it was corroded. I guess the galvanic corrosion into the I'm not sure what you call these. It's like a like those raw plugs that you put in drywall so the screws don't pull out, except it's made of metal and it seats into the aluminum box frame, so you can anchor stuff into it, I guess you would just say. So this thing has been stuck in here forever. It wouldn't come out, and I finally got it out today. I figured I'd try another method, and it was just a case of putting a set of vice grips on actually just this collar that was in there, and it came out. I'm not sure why that worked, but it did. And the part that I have to actually fix on this, and this is, I guess, when originally the seat when this bolt got seized into the frame, somebody needed to get the seat off instead of, I guess they couldn't get in there with any sort of wrenches or vice grips or anything, so they ended up, I guess, snapping this off in order to get the seat off. So now that I've got the bolt out, I can reuse this, but now I need to make a new piece for here. So I guess I have two options to think about. I can either try to cast a new piece using plastics. Here's my plastics kit. And it comes with molding bars and whatnot, so you can actually take a mold off this side, transfer it over, and pour a new one. Or I can maybe fabricate one from a piece of extra polypropylene off a rear fender that I've got, and try plastic welding it on. I'm not sure yet what is going to be the more sturdy way to go. So stay tuned. All right, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try the plastics kit first for two reasons. One is you can make a much better repair that looks better right away if you're taking a mold off one side and transferring it over to the other, which I'll show you how to do. The second is if it's not going to work for any reason, it'll be pretty quick to tell. It'll just basically just snap right off pretty cleanly here. And then I can go the plastic welding route and try to manufacture something that way. So whereas if I go the plastic welding route first, inevitably you're going to make more of a mess of the edge of this thing. There's going to be less of the original piece left over. So I'm going to try the plastics first. We'll see how that goes on this. I think just from the code that I see on the seat here, you can see underneath there, shows you. It says, let me get the camera up here. Underneath there, there's a PP, which means polypropylene. So that's kind of how you kind of tell what plastic you're working with, and some products are compatible with polypropylene and some are not. And if you're going to plastic weld it and you're going to use plastic welding rod, you need to make sure you've got polypropylene welding rod. Again, otherwise it just won't adhere, it won't stick. So I've been back and forth on this a few times and doing a bit more research, and I think the polypropylene and plastics is probably not the right solution. I did make a mold successfully for it, but in doing my additional investigation, if you're gonna, I mean, plastics is would be okay if this was just kind of I'll call it a cosmetic repair. But if it's going to be under some sort of heavy load, which this is, I mean, this is a seat mounting bracket with the seat weight of a rider on it, the likelihood of it holding up, you hit a bump or just your general weight up and down on a seat, I think it's just going to snap off. So I think we're going to go with the plastic welding. So all right, so basically I went off the old fender, the stuff I had left after working on the Kawasaki fender. There was a piece that was kind of the right sort of shape, although it was a little bit big. So what I did is I cut it in half and took about 1/4 inch. It was about that big originally. I'll show you there. There was a hole in it, so I cut the center section out, and then my first job is I'm going to weld these two pieces back together. And once that's welded, I will graft that onto the seat here. The tricky part, I think, is just going to be, one, make sure it's strong enough, and two, make sure that it's level and the same height as this, so the seat doesn't rock back and forth. So the basic nub is welded on there. See that? So a couple of things to do now is, so one is just maybe a little bit more shaping so it looks exactly like this one. A little bit more contouring maybe under here. But more importantly, and the most difficult, is I have to try to get inside to weld there now, and then once I've gotten inside to weld, I can then drill the hole in there. So I have to measure the distance on the frame of the bike, and so I'll measure the distance from this to this on the bike, drill, and then I'll probably take another reference point from here to here, and then from here to here, just to make sure I've got to triangulate it properly. You don't want to drill the hole in the wrong place. But firstly, I think what I'm going to do is maybe try to put some sort of metal foil protection on here, so that I don't accidentally hit it with the soldering iron and melt any of the vinyl on my seat. So I think I'll go and get some protective foil for that. Alright, so here's my crude plan to protect the seat cover. So obviously I'm not going to try to make contact with it, but this is just in the inadvertent mistake of touching the hot iron to the seat. And then the other thing I'm going to do, because I'm going to end up having to hold this with one hand and solder with the other, I've kind of pre-cut some small pieces of plastic polypropylene welding rod, so that I can kind of drop those in and maneuver them with the soldering iron with all of one hand. So okay, so that seemed to work reasonably well. For some reason my camera didn't record. I didn't push the button, one or the other, but anyway, it worked okay. We managed to not burn any of the vinyl on the seat, which is good. So we've got it welded up all the way around on the outside, and we've got it welded on the inside. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean up the profile of this a little bit, and then once that's done, I can weld, I can drill the hole in the top. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that. So now we've got a lug there, an attaching lug that looks pretty close. So the next step will be to take some measurements off the bike, and then we'll get the distance from the two holes, get it marked with the Sharpie, and then we'll drill the hole to the correct size, because there's a metal collar type of washer that goes in here, so it's kind of like a standoff, so it can't over compress in there. So we'll get that measured, get that drilled, and then we'll have to put it to the test. All right, so first things first, we're going to drill a pilot hole, and then after that we'll drill the main hole. All right, so see, I've got the hole drilled, and the metal collar washer is now nicely snugly in that hole. So I'm just going to use a little bit of acetone, clean up that silver Sharpie off there, and then we'll be ready for trial fit. All right, so everything worked out according to plan. The new attachment point is in there, got the correct bolt and the collar. You can not even tell that has been grafted on there. Look at the other side. The only difference on the other side is there's an Allen bolt in here, which actually shouldn't be, but there we go. So yeah, so that went well. Could not ask for anything better than that. Thanks for watching.